The US military is full of criminals who can't get real jobs. Boot camp is designed to break you and make you fail. Women can't succeed in the armed forces. Military pay is terrible compared to civilian work. Veterans come home damaged and can't function in society. And the Pentagon wastes billions while our troops eat nothing but MREs in combat zones. Every one of these statements is complete rubbish. I'm here to destroy the biggest myths about the US military that have been fooling Americans for decades. And trust me, the truth is far more shocking than the lies you've been fed. Welcome back to the war. Let's start with the granddaddy of all military myths. That boot camp is some sadistic torture chamber where drill sergeants take pleasure in breaking recruits, and most people wash out in failure. Here's the reality that will shock you. 90% of recruits complete boot camp successfully. The Department of Defense tracks these numbers religiously. Army attrition, just 11%. Navy, 12%, and the Air Force and Marines, both 10%. But here's what the Pentagon doesn't want you to know. Modern drill sergeants aren't the screaming psychopaths Hollywood portrays. Army Sergeant First Class Mike Griffin, who actually did the job, called it his most fulfilling assignment. These instructors provide physical, mental, and emotional guidance because they have just 8 to 13 weeks to break habits that could get you killed on a battlefield. The military has invested too much money in you to want you to fail. They're not running a failure factory. They're running a success machine. Every recruit who washes out represents thousands of dollars down the drain. But the numbers will shock you when you see what Americans really think about military recruitment. Go to jail or go in the military. You've heard this tired trope 1,000 times. Americans love believing that the armed forces are full of criminals who couldn't hack it in the real world. This is complete rubbish. Here's the controversial truth. Only 25 to 40% of American youth even qualify for military service. The standards are so high that the majority of young Americans can't meet them. Obesity, criminal history, poor test scores, medical conditions, they all disqualify you. Every single recruit undergoes thorough background checks that dig into juvenile records. Yes, waivers exist for minor offences, but they're limited and can permanently bar you from jobs requiring security clearances. The military isn't desperate, they're selective. And here's the thing that'll infuriate the critics. Military recruits are actually more likely to have high school diplomas than their civilian counterparts. They're not society's rejects, they're often society's achievers, looking for structure, education and purpose. The Rand Corporation's research proves minorities are actually more likely to stay in the military than white soldiers, destroying the narrative that it's a dead end for disadvantaged communities. But wait until you hear what happened next with women in combat roles. For decades, Americans believed women faced insurmountable barriers in military service, limited jobs, no advancement opportunities, constant discrimination. The facts will blow your mind. As of 2019, women make up 20% of the Air Force, 19% of the Navy, 15% of the Army, and 9% of the Marines. But here's the statistic that destroys the glass ceiling myth. 7.6% of generals and admirals are women, compared to just 4.2% of Fortune 500 CEOs. That's right, women have better representation in military leadership than in corporate America. 99% of Air Force positions are open to women, 88% of Navy roles. The 2013 end of the ground combat exclusion opened another 237,000 positions. All military jobs are now available to qualified women. But here's the controversial part that even feminists won't tell you. Women in the military get 12 weeks of maternity leave, better than most civilian jobs. They're not penalised for pregnancy, they're supported through it. This myth has fooled Americans for decades, but the most shocking stats about military families are coming up. Americans picture military families as broken, isolated, constantly separated by deployments, and unable to maintain relationships. Wrong again. 52% of enlisted personnel are married. 70% of officers are married. Compare that to the civilian average of 48%. Military families aren't falling apart, they're thriving at higher rates than civilian families. But they can't stay in contact. Wrong. It's 2025, not 1945. Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp. Deployed soldiers video chat with their families daily from the most remote corners of the world. Technology has obliterated the communication barrier. The military is so family orientated that they expanded maternity leave to 12 weeks, now working on better paternity leave. They provide housing allowances, family support services, and recreational programs. Here's the truth the media won't report. Military families move frequently, but they develop resilience, adaptability, and stronger bonds because of it. They're not victims of the system, they're beneficiaries of a support network that civilian families can only dream of. The truth about military recruitment will surprise you, but first. Military pay is garbage compared to civilian jobs. This myth persists despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Let's destroy this lie with facts. Entry-level military compensation often exceeds civilian equivalents when you factor in the complete package. Basic pay, housing allowance, food allowance, medical coverage, dental, 30 days of vacation, and educational benefits. The GI Bill alone is worth approximately $36,000. Since 2009, it's helped over 2.3 million veterans pay for college. Many service members earn degrees while on active duty through programs like the Air Force's Community College of the Air Force. But here's what really infuriates the critics. 80% of military jobs are non-combat roles with direct civilian counterparts. You're not just learning to shoot, you're becoming a mechanic, an IT specialist, logistics coordinator, or communications expert. Employers actively seek out veterans because military service teaches leadership, work ethic, reliability, teamwork, stress management, and critical thinking. These aren't just buzzwords, they're quantifiable skills that translate directly to civilian success. But the most controversial statistic is coming up, and it involves something the Pentagon desperately wants to hide. Here is the myth that will make you uncomfortable. Americans universally support and trust their military. The reality is far more complex and controversial. Public confidence in the US military has plummeted to 60%, the lowest level since 1997. We haven't seen numbers this bad since the Iran hostage crisis of the late 1970s and early 1980s, when confidence bottomed out between 50 to 58%. But here's the political bombshell. Republican confidence has crashed from 91% to 68%. In just 3 years, that's a 23-point drop amongst the military's most reliable supporters. Even Democrats show declining confidence after initial Biden-era gains. What's driving this collapse though? The chaotic Afghanistan withdrawal, political polarisation, and social media misinformation campaigns have all taken their toll. The military that once enjoyed 85% confidence after the Gulf War and maintained 70% plus support for 2 decades post 9/11 is now facing a crisis of public trust. Independents now have less confidence in the military than Democrats, a stunning reversal of historical patterns. But here's the myth that even veterans believe, and it's about something you'll see every day. Every American knows these military facts. Dog tags were notched so they could be placed between dead soldiers' teeth for identification. Horse statues reveal how the rider died in battle based on hoof positions. The Iwo Jima Memorial has a mysterious 13th hand representing God's intervention. All of these are complete fiction. The notch in World War II dog tags, it held the tag in place in engraving machines, nothing more. Phased out in the 1970s when technology improved. The horse statue myth, only 10 out of the 30 plus equestrian statues in Washington DC actually follow this supposed code. Confederate General Longstreet's statue completely defies it. The 13th hand at Iwo Jima. Sculptor Felix de Weldon himself debunked this. 13 hands? Who needed 13 when 12 were enough? These myths spread through military personnel called the Lance Corporal Underground. Informal rumour networks that can turn a joke into accepted fact within hours. The final myth will change how you see military forever. The final myth is perhaps the most damaging. Veterans return from service damaged, unable to function in civilian society, prone to violence, and unemployable. This stereotype is destroying lives. The reality is that veterans commit violent crimes at lower rates than civilian population. While PTSD and suicide are serious issues requiring attention and resources, the vast majority of veterans successfully transition to civilian careers and lead productive lives. Military skills are highly transferable. Leadership, teamwork, problem solving, reliability, and technical expertise are exactly what employers want. Programs like Hiring Our Heroes actively connect veterans with civilian opportunities. The myth of the broken veteran isn't just wrong, it's harmful. It discourages employers from hiring veterans and perpetuates stigma that prevents service members from seeking help when they need it. Veterans aren't victims of their service, they're beneficiaries of training, expertise, and character development that makes them valuable assets in any field. These myths persist because they're convenient. They let civilians feel superior, politicians score points, and media outlets generate clicks. But they're lies that dishonour the service and sacrifice of millions of Americans. The US military isn't perfect, but it's not the caricature painted by Hollywood, social media, or political opportunists. It's a professional force that reflects American society, diverse, capable, and constantly evolving. Next time someone repeats these myths, you'll know the truth. And the truth, as always, is far more interesting than fiction. If you enjoyed this video, then check out our myths that we destroy about the British Army. Hi soldiers, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments. And check out our merch and membership programs. And don't forget to check back in again soon. That's an order.